The San Diego State Aztec football team's bowl chances take a big hit as the Aztecs fall to the New Mexico Lobos at Snapdragon Stadium 21-16. Hello and welcome to this post-game edition of Aztecs All In. I'm Louis Weiner along with Steve Perez. And Steve, the Aztecs had the ball all game, scored 16 points, averaged 4 yards a play. Not exactly Aztec fast.
Aztec slow, as I texted you. Field goals aren't going to get it against a team like New Mexico who likes to score in bunches. The Aztecs held them below their average of 40 points a game, but heck, if you can't produce more than 16 points and 1 touchdown, you're not going to come out on top of something like that. You know, I was about to say that I'm speechless, Louis, about this loss. But there I go. Oh, there I go speechifying. I tried to tell you I was speechless.
I know. Aztecs held the ball for 35 minutes of this game. They ran 88 offensive plays and yet lost the game. Fell behind quick, and then the defense tightened up. New Mexico didn't score in the second or third quarters. They went 4 straight possessions, Steve, without scoring. And then the Aztecs just couldn't get them off the field in the fourth quarter.
Now, just from what I saw following the game on StatCast, I was shooting a high school football game in La Jolla for KUSI's Prep Pigskin Report. Field goals against New Mexico. Yeah, nothing against Gabe Placencia, but field goals and the offense, just 1 touchdown on the night. And by the way, Louis, La Jolla defeated Madison 27-15 in a round 1 playoff game. The Vikings have a big lineman, Jet Thomas, who has committed to the Aztecs, and from what I saw, it looks like they could use him. And that is, of course, for KUSI's Prep Pigskin Report that airs every Friday night on KUSI. I'm still working on a project for it as we speak. You know, and finally, on that whole note, that's Friday nights, as in high school football. I will grouse once again about TV's thirst for games throughout the week. But sooner or later, guys, they're going to saturate the market, and people may just start losing interest. Kind of like Aztec casual fans will probably lose interest after the Aztecs failed to notch a win at home against New Mexico for the first time in, how long was it? First time in 9 games. That's the first time they were defeated by New Mexico. Yeah. So every Lobo has its day.
Well, according to the UT's Kirk Kenny, who I talked to after the game, they were a little more than 12,000 through the turnstiles. And after the game, Coach Sean Lewis was asked why his Aztec fast offense is pretty much muddled down these days. And he pretty much mentioned, Steve, the offensive line. And they've had a lot of moving parts in there. And Danny O'Neill, he didn't have a lot of time today to get rid of the ball. And when he did get rid of it, he was often, rushing his passes.
Right, on the way back from that football game in La Jolla, I heard Rich Ornberger on San Diego Sports AM 760. One of the offensive linemen who was pressed into service for the Aztecs had 4 flags toward the end of the third quarter. So still working on a raw version of this game, after beating the TV deadline. So I missed any of that post-game hoo-ha, but he did say, Coach Lewis, earlier in the week that it was no secret that the offensive line was a work in progress and they were thin in spots after losing their anchor of a defensive, offensive tackle during the first game of the season. So they've been trying to play catch up on that part of the ball, a key part of any offense, and especially the type of offense that Sean Lewis wants to run at San Diego State under Aztec Fast.
Yeah, the key to this game was missed opportunities, Steve. Early in the game, Tyler Pastula with a 64-yard punt to the 1-yard line, and then the Aztecs give up a 99-yard drive. And then 2nd and goal from the 4, touchdown pass to Napier was called back due to offensive pass interference. Then after the defense pass interference, 3rd and goal, the Aztecs tried a reverse to Napier, who threw to a wide open O'Neal in the end zone, overthrown. Then the Aztecs get a 54-yard kickoff return to the 28. They get all the way to the 7, and then 2 negative plays to the 13, and they're forced to kick a field goal. Then at the end of the first half, they get the ball back with 1:12 and a timeout, and can't do anything with it due to an intentional grounding penalty. So they kept shooting themselves in the foot all night long.
Yeah, in the meantime, it looked like Devin Dampier, the all-everything quarterback for the New Mexico Lobos, had field night, and also their running back, Eli Sanders, with 2 very long touchdown runs. So the Lobos piled up 175 yards through the air on 16-24 passing from Dampier, but the big damage was done on the ground, where Sanders, in 16 carries, had 173 yards, Lewis, a long run
Eli
of 68
Sanders?
yards. Yeah.
Eli Sanders or Barry Sanders?
No. And Dampier, 17 carries, 127 yards, and he pretty much salted the game away. And as I was watching, because I did catch the final quarter of the game working here at home, still working, by the way, even though both these games are long in the books, Dampier seemed like he was able to find creases and run away from Aztec defenders at will. So that defense had some issues trying to contain the run of New Mexico, and that sounded like pretty much the story of the game.
Yeah, on the offensive side for the Aztecs, Marquez Cooper, 35 carries for 123 yards. But most of his carries, Steve, he just could not get going. There was one drive in the fourth quarter. We got a 12-yard run, a 6-yard run, a 5-yard run. And after the game, he talked about that. I'll play a little bit of that sound, in a little bit so you can hear more about what he had to say. But he was just utterly frustrated all night long, as was Coach Lewis, as he showed in the postgame.
Yeah. On the radio, I heard they complained about movement before the Lobos on one touchdown run that should have resulted in a penalty, and replays showed that the offensive player was going forward and the refs missed it. And then the next drive, there was a brutal hit to an Aztecs receiver that should have been reviewed for targeting, according to the radio crew, but it was not. So
yeah, that was a pass to Lewis Brown. Some calls
did not go the other ways. Yeah.
That was a pass to Lewis Brown. It was a 3rd down pass. It was incomplete. At first, it looked like he fumbled it, and it was called an incomplete pass, but they did not flag it for a blow to the head. And the replays did show it looked like his head definitely went backwards there. So I agree with you there. That was a bad move by the refs.
Well, what else? At this point, you're going to go ahead and keep picking at the open wound in the post-game comments, but what does this team do now with 3 wins on the season? They have 2 road games coming up and a final home game against Air Force. This, to me, was a game where we were really going to learn a lot about the state of the program at this point after going through 2/3 of the season. And the assessment, look at the record and the scoreboard. It is a work in progress. It is a transition year. And, man, do they have some work to do in the football program for the rest of this year and in the off season.
Marquez Cooper said they were still playing for a bowl game with 3 games left. Mathematically, of course, they could hit 6, but this was the one they needed because they do have 2 winnable games, Utah State and Air Force, the final 2 games of the year. But at this point, I just think the offense is just not consistent enough. Some games they're great in the first half, bad in the second half. Some games, vice versa. I think the defense has been pretty consistent most of the year. They've played pretty well, and tonight the defense didn't lose this game.
No, yeah, the Aztecs had their chances. They ran 88 plays, you say, and when they really needed to produce points on some possessions in the fourth quarter, they rolled snake eyes.
Yeah, they did. And the Aztecs actually punted on fourth down twice in New Mexico territory at the 43 and from the 39. Late in the game, the Aztecs had a 3rd and 1 with an opportunity to move in a position to win the game, but Cam Davis was stopped for a 4-yard loss, and the Aztecs ended up punting, and they really never got the ball back after that.
Right, and that despite the fact that they had the time of possession battle won. They had the ball for 35 minutes, New Mexico for about 25 minutes, and unproductive in terms of actually getting across the goal line on offense. That's pretty much tells the tale.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember last year we were talking about chunk plays? The Aztecs gave up a lot of them. Well, it kind of came back today. They gave up a 35-yard pass, a 51-yard touchdown run, a 68-yard touchdown run, a 43-yard pass. So while the defense overall played okay, early on it was a mess, and they just couldn't stop Eli Sanders, and I keep calling him Barry Sanders because that's what he looked like today.
Yeah, Lewis, at this point, I'm going to let you continue picking at the wounds and rolling the post-game tape and excuse myself and get back to hacking on this project. It's PPR Raw, which you can catch on their YouTube channel.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. As promised, let's hear what Coach Sean Lewis and running back Marquez Cooper had to say after the game.
So obviously not the results, that any of us are hoping for, right? Or that we work so hard for. And again, that starts with me first and foremost. Got to do a much better job throughout the course of the week. Doing a better job with our attention to detail, the way that we're coaching, particularly offensively. So when we get in the red zone there, when the area in the field tightens up and the margin of error tightens up, that we can be much cleaner when we're down there. In particular, anytime that you have the number of trips that we did, and you settle for the number of field goals that we did in a close ball game, that we know that these are going to be, and they're all 4-quarter fights. It ends up being the difference as you go with all of it. So got to do a much better job in that area in particular. Kids battled all the way through. And again, I just got to put them in a better position to be successful from start to finish with everything. Yeah, I mean, again, it's probably has to do with a lot of the things that I'm working through with the personnel that we're trying to figure out what's best, the number of different combinations that we've played with the offensive line up front, a young quarterback who's coming into his own, multitude of factors that go into it, right? But it starts and finishes with me, and I got to do a better job, again, ironing out where the holes are and making sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to be successful. Yeah, probably just got to identify what the kids consistently do best, right, and being able to consistently replicate that over and over again, right? It seems like one week we do one thing really, really well, and you try and build a game plan around that, and then, it's not as strong as it was the week prior, right? And so, again, really taking a deep dive into what is it truly that we do consistently well so that we can build a plan around that. So when you get in those critical moments, wherever it might be, in the beginning of the game, the end of the game, third down, red area, that you can lean on those things and do what you do well and lean on the players that you know that you can count on.
They ran a lot of the 3-3 box on us. I didn't really see that too much over the course of the season. They did show that, however. So I should have been more patient in my reads, but that's on me. I mean, it's all on me, I got to do a better job. I feel like this game, prior to this game, I did a good job reading my keys, hitting the hole with speed, and being decisive. Tonight, I was being a little bit too decisive early in the first half. Should have been more patient in the first half. Second half, I was more patient and had a better half, but it's all on me.
Well, while the Aztecs football team lost, the men's basketball team got off to a winning start at home against UC San Diego. And Steve has more on that.
Lewis' first official game of the Aztecs men's basketball season saw a near repeat of last year's game against the visiting foe, Tritons of UC San Diego. Regular followers of the program recall the Aztecs barely won last year's contest at UCSD's Lion Tree Arena on a last-second putback by Jaden Ledee. Both the Aztecs and Tritons have undergone wholesale roster redos since then because, well, that's now the current state of college basketball in Division I. But you'd figure that Coach Brian Dutcher's Aztecs, with their group of athletes playing in front of their home crowd on a night they raised yet another Sweet 16 banner in Viejas, would overcome anything that Tritons coach Eric Olin could present. Well, it ended up that way with the Aztecs ultimately prevailing 63-58, but the Tritons led for 12 minutes of the game and by as much as 6 points with about 9 minutes left in the second half. Going forward, you should have seen the look on Coach Dutcher's face when he was asked about when the Tritons would be next on the schedule in the coming years. The way seeding in tournaments and strength of schedule plays into things, a loss last year would have done considerable damage to the Aztecs, and a loss this year at the outset of their season? Well, let's just say the Aztecs will now be big fans going forward of the Tritons. The better they perform now in the Big West, which is their first year being eligible for postseason play as a Division I program, the better the Aztecs win this time will look. Meantime, it's a one-off that just worked out for both teams. But Dutch says games between the two crosstown rivals at best will always be at Viejas. Check out the deep Al Gore-style sigh before he talks about the possibility.
Yeah, but not there. I don't know. We'll see. Scheduling's always hard. You know, you always think, well, we're not going to do this again. And then the dates line up and it's a good game for both teams and you do it. You know, so obviously they've given us great games the last 2 years. You know, they've had a chance to win them both, and we found a way to make enough timely plays to get victories.
And just so you know, Lewis, Dutch smiled after the deep Al Gore sigh. So it was in jest, mostly, but his response was in earnest. This could develop into something special in the years to come. In scoring, Miles Bird led the Aztecs with 20. Tyler McGee paced the Tritons with 21. Aztecs newcomer Jared Coleman-Jones, the 6'10 senior transfer from Middle Tennessee, led on the boards with 9 and 9 points. 10 Aztecs logged minutes during the game. Dutcher says the Aztecs' tough defensive style likely means that sort of substitution pattern this year, with the emphasis on traditional, hard-nosed Aztecs defense. That's the tradition, along with winning. Here's Bird and Coleman-Jones talking about all the banners in the rafters and the incredibly high standards being set by this program year after year.
Being a guy that's been here 3 years now, I know what the standard is here, so I've been fortunate enough to see the biggest banner out there being revealed. I wasn't on the court when that happened, but practicing with those guys every day, I was able to kind of, know what the identity is and how we play here at San Diego State.
Personally, coming into this program and being fresh, it's inspiring. I mean, just to see the standard that we're held to, just to look up and be like, we got to do it again and again and again, and just prepare to continue to win. Like, it's just great to see up there. It's a great reminder.
On all the banners, Dutcher says he doesn't use them as motivation. You're now talking about a program that, since 2010, has 11 NCAA tournament appearances, 4 times advancing to the Sweet 16. And then there was that near-perfect 2023 run through the Final Four that left them just 1 game shy of a national championship. To Dutcher these days, they're more like expectations.
It's the point with this program right now, we're not in need of a lot of motivation. We just play high-level basketball, and we expect to play it. So there's no motivation needed. If you come here, you're going to play defense, you're going to rebound, and you're going to play free offensively. And I think that's what we did tonight.
Next up, Occidental at Viejas Tuesday, November 12th. Then things really pick up for this year's version. Gonzaga, November 18th at Viejas on the CBS Sports Network. Then 3 games in Vegas for the Players Era Festival starting November 26th, featuring guaranteed games against Creighton and Oregon. Well, Lewis, I guess it's time to say goodbye on this edition of Aztecs All In. Remember, you can check us out on the X. That's at Aztecs_all_in. And drop us a line if you are of a mind via email at aztecsallin@gmail.com. For Lewis Weiner, I'm Steve Perez. Goodbye.